It's actually interesting to think about that. You would wonder if in the generations, if that has a lot to do with the way the Gen M's and the Z's are working today. You think that's one of the factors that we see loyalty to companies also decreasing by significance?
Well, it would be because we have less time for system two, less time for rational logical thought. And so we're looking for these shortcuts, these pieces of information that goes, you know what, I'll probably be right if I do this. And when that information is lacking, because those percentages are changing in terms of what part of the brain we are able to use, less decisions are being made.
And welcome back to the S.M.A.R.T Podcast, where S is for self-care, M is for mindful growth, A is for adaptive learning, R is for rhythmic operations, and T is for a thriving community, of course, all supporting the performance of our organizations. I'd love to welcome Patrick, a fellow Dutchman, all the way from down under, to join our podcast today. We're going to have a very interesting conversation that all of you should be interested in, because there are some obstacles and barriers that we have identified in trying to get the point across, trying to sell things to our audience, sell something to our employees. And there's a really good reason for that. We're going to dive a little deeper and explore that. Before we get started, Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, hello, Walter. Thank you for asking me to come on the show, and hello to everybody listening. My name is Patrick Vandenberg, and I'm a Cialdini certified trainer. You may recall something when you hear that name Cialdini. Dr. Robert Cialdini wrote that book, Influence, which sold 7 million copies in 48 different languages and considered by many top CEOs to be the best business book of all time, and one of his trainers. So I teach people how to be ethically more persuasive using behavioral science, because as I'll hope to go in with you, there's actually a science to how people make decisions. And so that's what I do.
Excellent. Great to hear. And again, let's dive right into it. So over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we're going to explore a couple of questions. And as I try to relate to my audience, this is not just about listening, but it is also about taking an action. And Patrick told me he has a great podcast that he just started too, and he will share with us later on how you can find them and where you can link up with them if you have additional questions beyond the podcast today. So as a leader, we often have to make changes, and changes in any institution is exceptionally difficult to do. Why? Because there's resistance to change. It's no different than if you try to sell a product or a service. There is a resistance, and it seems to be getting worse, not better. And you and I talked a little bit about how to improve upon that. But first is trying to understand the why behind the resistance. So take the conversation wherever it may go, where you think is best to start to get the people to understand what this topic is all about.
Thank you, Walter. And I'd love to dive straight into the science of human decision making. The reason I'm so passionate about this, by the way, is that we all see the world through the lens of our expertise, right? What we know a lot about, that's how we view the world, and we see, oh my goodness, if that person did or that business did something just a little bit different, they would have a better outcome. And so I see the world through the lens of ethical persuasion. So when I see advertisements, when I see brochures, when I see websites, when I hear somebody talk, I can just hear all the success, all the achievements, all the competitive advantage that's being lost just because they're not communicating in a way that makes it easier for their audience to make a decision. So there's a lot of success to recover. And so hopefully I'll be able to provide some insights today into why that's happening and how you could change that. So when it comes to decision making, I'm going to lean on the work of a Professor Daniel Kahneman, who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2002. Daniel Kahneman was a professor in psychology and a behavioral scientist. So that in itself is already interesting, how someone with that background wins a Nobel Prize in economics, right? I mean, what can he figure out that has such an impact on economics? Well, a lot of his work was in relation to decision making. So Daniel Kahneman explains when it comes to the decision making, you and your audience, and you're quite right, Walter, this doesn't just apply to sales. This is also, speaking, leadership management, getting your team to follow you, getting your managers to adopt and buy into the vision that you want to lead. I mean, even if we all make mistakes, what if you followed a vision and that didn't work out? How do you get people to follow you on your next venture or path you want to take? And so when it comes to decision making, our brain has two parts. We have the logical, rational part of the brain, and we have the intuitive part of the brain. The intuitive part is fast. It takes minimal effort to run, what's called System 1. And it's always sort of running in the background, always listening, always helping us make decisions. System 1 largely works on shortcuts. A shortcut might be expensive equals good, right? If I'm faced with a choice that I don't know, as in I need to purchase something, but I don't know too much about it, I could go away, I could delay my decision, I could go and read books, and I could do courses, and I could get consulting from other people, and then months later, then I'll be in good shape to make an educated decision about this particular issue that I was faced with. But often we don't have the time for that. And so the rule, expensive equals good, affords us a shortcut to a quicker decision. We might go, you know what? If I just spend a bit more money on this thing, I'm probably right. And you know what? That's exactly what will happen. You'll probably be right, because these shortcuts are in our head because they've worked for us in the past most of the time. And it's true, most of the time when you spend more money on something, you get better quality, better suited to purpose, lasts you longer. So it's tempting to take the shortcut. Other shortcuts might be, if a lot of other people are doing it, that must be the right thing to do, right? Which is what leads in with social proof. So that's System 1. So it works fast, takes minimal effort to run, and works largely on shortcuts. And it's automatic, you can't help it. On the other side, then we have System 2. So System 2 is our logical, rational brain. And so System 2 looks at all the information that's in the situation. We need System 2 to analyze a logical argument. But there's a caveat with System 2. It requires our attention to work. And people have a limited budget of attention. If we don't have attention, then we can't perform these tasks for System 2 well. Well, Daniel Kahneman, back in 2002, demonstrates that 90% of our decisions are made by System 1. Later research now says that is 95%, possibly even higher. And this explains a couple of things. People who've been in the same business for a long period of time tend to agree that it seems to be getting harder to sell people. It seems to be getting harder to get people to stay loyal to our vision, to our brand, to our company, to us as a person. And that makes perfect sense that that's getting harder, because most people in business don't know anything about the science of persuasion, or the science of how to convince people. So when they think of, okay, how are we going to convince this other party? How am I going to get my board members to agree with me? How am I going to motivate my team to want to follow me on this vision? How am I going to convince these people to buy my product or my service? When we're sitting there thinking, we're using conscious thought, which is System 2, right? It requires attention. And System 2 has a tendency to come up with the types of information that needs System 2 and the other person to process it. And our audience doesn't have the time for that anymore. That's why that percentage is getting smaller and smaller. And so this also explains how you can achieve rather surprisingly large effects when you actually start talking to that part of the brain that's in charge of 95% of the decisions, instead of that part of the brain that's only in charge of 5. To give you some examples, T-Mobile had products on their website in a particular order, right? Services, so many calls, so much data. By reordering the order in which they were displayed, sales of the top of the line model went up by 34.4%. When Bose was launching an advertising campaign for a new hi-fi system that they had, they were really excited. Their advertising people had come up with a plan, and sales were disappointing. They asked Dr. Cialdini to look at the ad, and the headline, it had an element in it which subconsciously worked against Bose, which happens all the time. People think that something is persuasive, but it actually subconsciously, really effectively teaches people not to do what it is we're trying to achieve. Dr. Cialdini changed just the headline for something that worked in Bose's favor, and sales went up by 45%. So it can have a big impact. The reason, or one of the reasons that this percentage is changing, is our attention span. We used to have an attention span of about 20 minutes in the 80s. I don't know if you know the famous attention span of the goldfish, which is 9 seconds. Our attention span is now 7 seconds. And so when it comes to the people we sell to, the people we deal with on our team, everybody has this short attention span. And so we need to provide them with the pieces of information that appeal to system one, which make it easier to make a decision. So their brain sort of goes, you know what, this is right for me. And then they follow that direction. Does that make sense, Walter?
Sure. So it's actually interesting to think about that. You would wonder if in the generations, if that has a lot to do with the way the Gen M's and the Z's are working today. You think that's one of the factors that we see loyalty to companies also decreasing by significance?
Well, it would be because we have less time for system two, less time for rational logical thought. And so we're looking for these shortcuts, these pieces of information that goes, you know what, I'll probably be right if I do this. And when that information is lacking, because those percentages are changing in terms of what part of the brain we are able to use, less decisions are being made. And so what often happens is that you pitch your idea to someone, and then they might not go along with it. And then you might think, okay, well, as in you feel like you got a no. But you actually, for a large percentage of people, you didn't get a no. What you got was indecision. They decided not to make a decision. And it's effectively a no, as in you didn't get the business, or you didn't get the buy-in. But it could have been a yes. It could have been buy-in, and it could have created this loyalty. And of course, this has an impact everywhere where we communicate, right? It has, in our lead generation, in our sales pitches, in our negotiations with suppliers, our team members. Has a large effect all over the spectrum.
So interesting. So now that we know this and we are more aware of it, what can we do about it?
Okay, so what we teach is what Dr. Cialdini has basically brought to the world. He published this book, Influence, in 1984, which should absolutely be on your bookshelf. Also, the audio book, very entertaining listen to and read. Doesn't quite per se teach you how to use it, though. And the other problem is that because of our shortening attention span, we also forget a lot of new material. That's why formal training is often needed. Dr. Cialdini identified initially 6, and then later a 7th principle of persuasion was introduced to us. And these principles are universal, meaning they work in all languages, in all cultures and all countries, which is exceedingly valuable now because it's, our cultures are intermixed, but it's also much easier to do business with people or have business partners in other countries. So the 7 principles, all these words you've heard of before, but you probably, or your team probably doesn't know what the activators and the amplifiers are to make this work properly, and they lack the application skill and confidence to use it consistently. Reciprocity. So people feel obligated to give back the same type of behavior that's first given to them. And so, yes, we should help people. We should provide helpful things to people. And that brings on a sense that they owe us something. And in the context of compliance, people agree more with people that they owe. In business, a lot of businesses do that incorrectly, though. A classic example is the free ebook that you can download on somebody's website. Right? Give us your name and your email address. We'll send you the download link, our gift to you. Nice try, but that's not a gift. It was a reward because there was a requirement to be met. Name and email address first, then you get the download link. So it wasn't a gift. There will be no feeling of needing to reciprocate. Liking, next principle. People like to deal with people that they like. That's not rocket science. But the hidden gem is that people like to deal with people that they know like them. Right? And that turns that around. If I feel that you genuinely like me, then even if I don't quite like you, if you like me, I'm still safe with you, right? Because if you like me, you're going to look after me. So we should genuinely come to appreciate our audience, the people we work with. Also, with liking, people like those who like them and say so. So a genuine compliment goes a far way, and you can compliment people on their values as well as their achievements. Principle of unity, that's the one that was introduced last to us in 2015. That's similar to liking, but it's about a sense of community. So if somebody is from the same town as you or went to the same university as you, all of a sudden you've got this familiarity towards each other, and you could use that in your communication. Also, co-creation, and we talked about loyalty. Co-creation has a big impact on loyalty. So working together with other people to come up with ideas, and that can be team members as well as our clients and potential clients. Social proof, probably familiar with that. A lot of businesses are collecting testimonials, which is wonderful, but testimonials are only one aspect of social proof. It's a lot bigger. If you think online reviews are important, there's lots of things you're not using. Social proof, we follow the leads of others, especially when we are uncertain and when the others are similar to us. So if you're going to bring up the fact that other people, like your audience, have done this particular thing that you're suggesting, that's great. But if you can bring up people that are similar to your audience, that's an amplifier, right? If you're pitching something to a group of mature female business owners, then if you turn up at testimonials or statements by 18-year-old male business owners, that's not going to resonate as much as if they were other mature female business owners. Authority is the next principle. That is about our ability to get our credentials across. And the truth is that you cannot really introduce yourself. You can't turn up and go, "Hi, my name is Patrick. Let me tell you the 35 reasons why you should listen to me today." Consciously, even the audience goes, "You're full of yourself," right? And so we lose on authority and we lose on liking. Now, research shows that anyone else but you can introduce you and it'd be effective. Even if your receptionist raises some of your achievements, the fact you've won awards, that sort of stuff, that effectively works. Authority is also about credibility. So is our message believed? Then we've got the principle of consistency. So that is that people want to stay true to past actions and behaviors. So we need to enable them to reveal to us what is important to them. And I think that's highly ethical. And then when that is brought to the surface, when later our proposal, what it is we're suggesting, aligns with what they've made publicly visible, then it's much harder to say no to that. Classic example is if you want to go mountain biking with your friend on the weekend, right, or someone, and you say, "Hey, do you consider yourself an adventurous person?" Most people would say yes, right? Most people think they're adventurous and creative. Yes, I'm adventurous. "Oh, that's awesome. I'm going on a mountain bike ride this weekend. Do you want to come?" Right? It's like, "Oh, I just said I was adventurous," right? So it's harder to say no. Lastly, then, is scarcity. We're familiar with that, right? We all have a fear of missing out, FOMO, or loss aversion. Yet in business, and that might be a powerful tip to sort of give to your audience, have a look at how you communicate in terms of your message, what you're saying, what you put in a brochure, what's on your landing page of your website, anywhere where you or your team is communicating. We tend to have a habit to point out to people what they stand to benefit, what they stand to gain if they decide to move in our direction. Where research shows you can easily be twice as effective with a fear of loss. And I can highlight a quick study There was a situation where homeowners had their homes assessed for insulation value. And at the end of the assessment, they would be told, based on their insulation, you would save so much per day. Let's say you would save $1 a day if you insulate your house fully. The other half of the people got the loss instruction. If you fail to insulate your house fully, you'll be losing $1 a day. 150% more people insulated their house fully under the loss instruction instead of the gain instruction. So have a look at your communication on your website. Are you talking about what people stand to benefit and gain from what it is you do? Well, research would show that you'll be less effective by not mentioning or also mentioning what they would lose if they don't use you or don't use this opportunity. So those are the 7 principles. And then there's also the contrast phenomenon, which we often bring up, that depending on what you present first, you can change the experience of anything. And so this is a dynamic that business owners often use against their own self-interest. And so just by knowing how to structure things, you can have wonderful results. The example of T-Mobile, that was just contrast.
Yeah, very interesting concepts, and thank you for sharing that insight to that. So to wrap it up, because I tried to keep it to the attention span of 20 minutes, although I like that in the 9-second one. There's a lot of truth to that. That's the reason why we try to find a hook to get people to at least interested initially, and not just ramble on. Where can people find you? How can they learn more about the subject matter? How can they find you on a podcast? And any parting words of wisdom or actions that they can take to actually become more meaningfully involved in this?
Thank you for asking, Walter. So to find out more, of course, we've got a website, ethicalpersuasion.com.au, because I'm based in Australia. To learn a lot more about this, you can find me on with my podcast. It's called Ethical Persuasion Unlocked. So you find that in the usual places. Episode 1 is sort of a wake-up call. I'd love you to start there. Number 2 dives much deeper in the science of human decision-making. And then in 4, I actually have a summary of all the principles in a little bit more detail, and we'll go in other episodes deeper into each principle. But inevitably, it's nice to listen to podcasts, but you need some personal involvement and training over a longer period of time to actually master this. So, of course, I deliver keynotes, I do workshops also online, and we have some flagship training, which Dr. Cialdini designed, which runs over 8 weeks. It's just an investment of 20 hours. But it's, in my opinion, the fastest way to learn this in the scope of 8 weeks. On our website, there's some free tools people can access. If you go to the menu bar, follow free, and maybe we can put this in the show notes as well. There's a downloadable ebook, and don't worry, no name or email address required. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a gift, of course. So just right-click and download. And there's also a 7-day email challenge where you get a nugget of persuasion gold every day. And if people use some of this stuff, I love it when this gets activated in people. If you tried some of this, if you used it, put the comment somewhere on my social media of the positive outcome that you achieved. And as a last sort of nugget to use, something to do with numbers. If we talk about numbers with people, we have a habit of rounding off numbers. As in, we worked with 1,200 clients last quarter, or we saved this company $45,000, right? Clearly, it wasn't exactly 1,200 people. Clearly, it wasn't exactly $45,000. We round things off. And our audience subconsciously goes, well, you rounded it off. You took a liberty. And I don't know how much of a liberty you took. Just by using exact numbers, you can already increase your credibility. We worked with 1,187 clients last month, and we saved this company $46,512.12. Immediately you go, well, that must be the real figures, right?
Yeah.
And so that's an easy thing to do.
Excellent. Listen, certainly I've done some of these without putting a label on them. I'm very interested and intrigued. I certainly will pick up the book Influence myself. All of what you have said will be in the show notes itself on multiple platforms, so they can easily find you and connect with you. Patrick, thank you. Dankjewel, as 2 Dutchmen. both follically challenged, but certainly in a good place to help other people out, and as I refer to it as paying it forward. Thank you for coming onto my show today. I know that the audience will take some things away that they can certainly improve their lives upon. And of course, it's all about a growth mindset. It's all about getting a little bit better. Just 15 minutes a day. You too can be the leader you always wanted to be, or the leader that your team needs you to thrive under. Again, thank you, and we'll talk soon again.